Okay, this is a continuation of the last video I did. I previously created this, and now we're going to make some observations. Uh, as you notice, most of the time the long-term debt is the cost of the long-term debt is higher than the cost of the short-term debt. From 1990 all the way up to like 1997, somewhere in there, uh, you can see that the cost of the long-term debt is longer than, it was more expensive than the cost of short-term debt. And that makes sense because remember we talked about maturity risk premium and inflation premium. Well, that would make sense that this would be more expensive because you're paying a premium because of the maturity risk premium. Okay, and then you get into right around 2000. These are kind of close, right? But at 2000, it becomes inverted. The short-term debt is more expensive. It costs more than the long-term debt. And if you think about it, that's right around. That was right around here is where they had what was called there was a recession. Okay, and so expectations theory says that might happen, where you get something called an inverted yield curve, where the short-term debt uh, could be more expensive than the long-term debt. Now again, it happens here in this area in like 2006, 2007, where the short-term debt is more expensive than the long-term debt. So the maturity risk premium kind of goes away, which is very interesting. And again, you get something called this inverted yield curve. What do I mean by yield curve? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So what we're going to do is, well, I guess what we'll do, remember we dragged 3-month and 10-year down into here. Let's go ahead and drag the rest of these down. So I'm going to drag 1 month down here. And I'm going to drag 6 months. I'm being careful where I put them. I put 1 month ahead of this one. I put 6 months between 1 and 3. I put a year right after that. 2 years. I put after the 1 year. 3 years. And I put after. So I'm putting them in the right spot. If you mix it up, I'll show you in a second how to not mix it up, or how to fix that. If you mix it up, I'll show you how to fix that, like I said. So let me see, and I'm going to drag this down to there. And this one goes here. This one goes here. Okay. So now I've dragged all of these down. Now all these say, if you look up here, it says count, right? We have average here because we changed this one. We need to change all these to average. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to start everyone that says count. Now there's not an easier way to do this. I could write a program to do it. But by default, I can't make it say average. So you got to go in there one by one and change it to average. Anyway, on this version of Excel, I couldn't find a way to do it. So just change them to average one by one. Everyone that says count. Put a value field settings on average, okay. Click on it, value field settings, average, okay. Keep doing that until you get them all changed over to average. Okay, now I see a cross. They all say average. That's kind of interesting. We just changed this graph quite a bit. We have all the different maturities on here, but that's not really what I was after. Okay. So we're gonna do something different. I'm gonna drag this out of the way right now. Now I have another problem here because I have 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. I dragged this into the wrong spot. This 10 year should be between 7 year and 20 year. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go here, and if I go between, I get that little left and right arrow. I'm gonna drag this out so I can see. And I'm going to take this 10 year, I'm going to drag it up between and drop it where it belongs. And then I'm going to put this back so I can see what I did. Now I got the 10-year in the right spot. So you just drag and drop that into the right spot. All right. So once I get all those, what I want to do is I'm going to highlight across. And I'm going to tell you a shortcut. If I want to highlight all the way to the bottom, I hold down Shift and I tap the End key, END, the End key once. And then I'm going to tap the down arrow once. And it's going to get the whole thing. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can still just highlight it by hand. But as a shortcut, you just highlight across, hold down Shift, hit the End key spelled END, and then hit the down arrow, and then let up the Shift key. Then I can just right click and go copy. And I'm going to create a new sheet. So I'm going to go down here and click on this to create a new sheet. I'm going to go to cell A1, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste. Okay. Now, normally I would have right clicked and I would have went, let me go Control Z. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unpaste that. So I'm going to go Control Z. You could do this. Normally I usually go right click. I usually paste values because I don't want to take all that stuff, but with a pivot table it's going to paste values anyway. But all right, so anyway, now we have this on a new sheet, sheet 3 on mine. And what I want to do is I'm going to highlight across A, B, C, D all the way through L. And I'm going to go between one of these. I'm going to double click it to auto fit the column width. So I'm going to want to graph this in order to get something called a yield curve. And I want it to be to scale. And 1 month to 3 months, well, that's 2 months apart. 3 months to 6 months is 3 months apart. 6 months to 1 year is 6 months, and then it goes 1 year apart, and it's 2 years apart. So if I graph this, this is not going to be to scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type numbers in here. So 1 month is 1/12. In decimal, it'd be 0.0833. Okay? And okay, so 3 months, well, 3 over 12 is 1/4, so it'd be 0.25. 6 months would be 0.5 of a year. Of course, that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 7, 10, 20, and 30. So instead of putting, I'm not going to type here, so I want to put a number into each one of these. Okay? Because when I graph it, like I say, I want it to be to scale. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply highlight this time scale. Then I'm going to hold down Control and highlight across here. So I'm going to get January of 1990. Okay, so again, if you want to highlight two different things, I highlight this. If I want to separate, I go down, hold down Control while I highlight the next thing. I let up Control. Now these are the two things I want to graph. So then I'm going to go to Insert. And this time I want to look for the scatter. Now yours may look different, but you're going to look for where it says scatter when you wave over it. And you're going to click on that. And I like to do this one just to see the points. So you're going to get this. So I'm going to drag this over here. And if you notice, some of these have division by 0. And I don't want to include that in my graph, so I'm just going to take this. Like you go here till this is this little diagonal arrow, and I can drag this over to not include that in my graph. And on the left-hand side here, it also says division by 0. So I'm going to drag this over. All right. If you don't have, if it's not showing what's highlighted, you just simply click on here and it shows it. Okay. Now the other thing I could do, this was January of 1990, right? January of 1990. So what I could do, I could go to this graph, and I have this chart. When I click on the graph, I click away, it goes away. When I click on this graph, this contextual tool menus come up. You know, what I want to do is I want to go to layout. I know yours might look a little bit different, but you're going to look for something called chart title. And I click on that, I'm going to go above chart. And then once this comes up, I can click right here. I can type in there January 1990, and then hit enter, and it puts that in there. Another thing, I don't need this series. I'm going to click here, I'm going to hit delete. Okay, so that's my yield curve. So it's showing that short-term maturities generally are going to be cheaper or have a lower interest rate than long-term maturities. Okay, so now let's do another one. Because remember, when we were looking here, well, let me see. If I go over here, remember how our short-term maturities were crossed right here, and they're around 2006. So I want to see what's going on there. So what I'm going to do, I'll go back to this sheet. Again, I'll highlight this. These just the numbers, and I'm going to go down to 2006. And 2006 is right here. And I'm gonna hold down Control. I'm gonna go to November and highlight across on November of 2006. I'm gonna let it Control. And you can see I still have this highlighted. And I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm gonna go Insert again, and I'm gonna go Scatter Plot, and the same thing. And whoop, that's not the scatter plot I want. Let me go Control Z. Well, let me change this chart. Change chart type. I want this scatter plot. Okay. Now I'm going to drag this over here. Again, I can click on this and delete it. And I can go to Layout, Chart Title, Above Title. I'm going to click here, and this was November of 2006. Okay, so now this curve is definitely different here. This is what's called an inverted curve, an inverted yield curve. These are called yield curves. Okay, and let me just do one more for fun. So we're going to go, let's see how it looks currently. So I'm going to click here. Go all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to do January, because January is a complete month. We're still in February right now. Hold down Control and click this. And go up to the top. And you go Insert, Scatter. And now I have this chart here. Okay. And again, I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to go to Layout, Chart Title, Above Chart. Click here. And this was February of 2015. Now the yield curve is back to normal. This is normally this is normally what's called an inverted, and these are just normal yield curves. So people get excited when they see this, because it usually means, you know, from expectations theory, trouble might, you know, you might have a recession or something like that. Okay, so what you can do, in lieu of, if you go back to the lessons, and you go to unit 3, or unit 3, step 4, it says to do all this. Well, I'm going to change it where you just have to do video 1 and video 2, follow along on my lecture, and then you can submit that file into the Dropbox along with some of this other homework I'm having you do. Okay, so those of you that took my compressed video class, now I repeated that since I went kind of fast. So you can do that. And then also I'm gonna edit this, and it's gonna look a little bit different. And you can do this instead of what I was doing before, step 4. All right, so that's it for that video.